So we'll continue from where we stopped our last class. Moving on to our next topic. We have several classes, but I think it was grouped into three different classes, right? First one was introduction, and introduction to fiber optic cable. Second one was installation, isn't it? Then the third one was the connectors and equipment that we use in fiber optics. So we're moving on to the fourth group of lesson. We'll be talking about installation guidelines and best practices also. Are we following?
Yes, sir.
Fiber optic cable installation. The guidelines and what best practices. To install fiber optic cable, it requires what? Careful handling, which we have already seen so far, isn't it? If you handle the cables anyhow, you end up breaking the core, which would damage the network. To damage it and ensure the installation requires careful handling so that we prevent damage and ensure optical network performance. Christian, take this remote. So we need to plan, we need to prepare before we start any installation, isn't it? In planning, we are creating a detailed plan, which will include the survey of the area where you want to carry out the installation, isn't it? As you survey the area, you also determine how the cable route would also be structured, isn't it? How you pass the cable that you want to run up to that place. You identify potential obstacles. You also calculate the required cable length, which would also account for the allowance of slack. Understand what we mean by slack? Extra cable. You also ensure that all necessary tools and equipment, such as cable pullers, lubricants, and test kits are on hand. So what's this talking about? Planning and preparation. Let me take for instance, we have this office, right? And we have a fiber cable, maybe from one of the top tier ISPs in the country, passing along the road, right? And we want to pick up connection from them along that cable by the roadside. What do? This guidelines now is planning and preparation, isn't it? As the fiber optic engineer, you have to plan. The first step in planning is to determine to survey the site, isn't it? Now, as the fiber optic engineer, you have to come over here, you survey the site. This fiber cable you have to run, where is it going to pass and enter the building, isn't it? That's the survey we're talking about. By the time you have determined where the cable would follow and enter the server room, where the fiber optic cable will be terminated, you now also survey the area where you're also going to connect to, isn't it? Because fiber optic connections has to be end to end, isn't it? They have to be end to end. So you need to determine where it's going to go to, right? Yeah. So even if their cable is passing along the road, it does not mean that you have to go and cut their cable along the road because you want to join your own. No. Because they have planned those cables that they have run along the road, they will have what we call manholes along the road, isn't it? At already established sites. So even if your street is coming out at this junction and their manhole is not in this junction, that means you need to route that cable also along the road also to where you get to their own handhole. Are we following? Because they don't just, this fiber optic cables, first of all, are underground cables, isn't it? Now, you can't just dig the underground cable there and join your own. No, you break it, isn't it? You have to go to the determined point. So those are what you get in the what? The site what? Survey. By the time you have gotten, okay, I'm picking from here and I'm connecting to this place, they cannot go up to what? Determining how the cable would pass from this point to that point, which you now look at it now. Okay, let's imagine from this office to the junction. Let's say their handhole is just by the junction there. Let's not walk too far, just by the junction there. How do we get to the junction from here? Okay, the server room is in this classroom now. Maybe we have to bore a hole out of the wall here, isn't it? So that the fiber cable can pass out of this place, right? Then from here, we have to go out to the gate, isn't it? Then if you're taking underground, that means from the gate now, start digging the ground, right? And which path are we going to follow? Are we going to go this way or this way, isn't it? We now start calculating, okay, we'll go like this, isn't it? We'll go left, then come out to the transformer, isn't it? Then to the junction, isn't it? Now, as you have determined the cable route, you also what? Identify what? Potential what? Obstacles. Now, as you're digging the ground, what do you think could be an obstacle? A building can be an obstacle. For instance, as you come out from this place now, will you fly the cable on the ground there? No. You have to dig the ground again. Those are obstacles, isn't it? As you come out to that side, you also have to dig again to the main road, isn't it? You're looking out for obstacle. Or let's say you're flying the cable, that is area cable. You're not digging underground cable. You're hanging the cables on the air, that's on top of poles. Now you need to also determine what? The obstacle. As I'm going, is there anywhere that I don't have pole, I can fly this cable, right? Those are the steps we take in planning and preparation. First step is what? Site survey. Second step, you determine what? How the cable will pass. That's the cable route. Third step, we identify what? Obstacle, isn't it? Then the next one, when we have done all these steps now, we can now go on to the next one to now calculate the required what? Cable length. Now you wonder, how do we calculate the cable length? There are several tools that you can use to calculate the cable length. For instance, we have the roller measurement tool. We have a roller you'll be pushing along the road as you're going. As you're going, it will be measuring the distance. Then when you get to a certain place, that's the end point, you can look at the roller and, okay, this is how many distance I've covered. Or you could go into use of your smartphones, for instance. You could open up, those of us that have smartphones, you could open up something like running apps, all those running apps and so on. They can help you measure distance. Do you understand? You can even search the Google Play Store. There are apps that can help you do that. You measure, you walk as you're walking from here to here, from here to here, right? You're walking along where that cable will follow, not the normal place you will pass. So you're walking the way that cable should follow so that you get the exact distance. So that you get the exact distance, you take the path that cable should follow. In that step, you are doing what? Calculating the required cable length. Then when you have gotten, okay, from this place to the junction where we are going to join the cable, I've measured it and I got 600 meters. Now you don't just go and tell go and bring 600 meters of fiber cable. No. The next step is to what? Allow for what? Slack. Allow for slack. Now, if I measured 600 meters, what is a good amount of slack that I can add? First, where you're going to terminate the cable, there are some lengths of the cable you would use for that termination purposes, isn't it? As you terminate here, you also terminate over there. There are some length of cable you should also use. Let's estimate, okay, 10 meters here, 10 meters there. That means how many meters altogether? 20, isn't it? Now we can add more slack because the slack we've just added is the termination slack. What about maybe one pole is not straight? It moves like this, right? You add that slack. It's because it's from your slack that you'll be getting up all those distances. So 600 meters, maybe you can take 10%. 10% of 600 meters. How many meters is that? 60. Based on that, you have measured it very well. If you just did haphazard measurement, you have to do more than 10%. You can do like 30% of the cable, right?
That you add?
Yes. So if I measured 600 meters now, 30% of 600 meters, how many will it give me? Around 20 something, right? Now, around 200 something, right? By the time I add 200 meters to the 600 meters cable, I'll be having a total of how many? 800, isn't it? Now, if I take that 800 meters to do that job, obviously I will be left with slacks, isn't it? That's why you're adding slack. So that in the future, if there should be any need for further determination, you don't need to cut the cable into two, because you already have what? Slack that you could just pull from here, right? Get where you're getting. Do you understand? Let's say, for instance, now an accident happens and your cable is terminated. You know, fiber optic cable is not like electrical cable. If you want to join two cables together, you have to prepare them, isn't it? And fuse them together, which you need, obviously need some slacks for that purpose, isn't it? Now, it's the slack that you have added when you are planning that cable that will help you what? Do that. If you didn't add slack when you were planning that cable, in that scenario where your cable is passing this part and that cable is being cut along the road, what do you think will happen? You now start going to buy extra cable because you need to join here in order to establish that communication again. So it's a very delicate job. We need to plan and prepare very well for it. You ensure all necessary tools and equipment are ready, such as what? Cable pullers or lubricants and test kits. They're on hand when you want to go and do the job. Then the next key point here is what? Safety. You always wear your appropriate what? PPE clothes and so on, which includes safety glasses. Remember, they are very microscopic what? Glass, isn't it? You can't see them. So you wear safety glass to save your eyes. You wear safety gloves. You wear hard hats. As you go out for jobs, you'll be carrying ladder. You'll be the gloves. You'll be wondering, what is gloves doing here? Those of us that do area work, you'll be working very close to high tension cables, which are electrical cables, right? As you're doing anything along that path, it's not good that you're doing it with your bare hands, isn't it? Because any mistake, you're going to touch the electrical cable, which is obviously dangerous, isn't it? So what do you do at that point in time? You have to wear what? Safety gloves to protect yourself, isn't it? You also wear hard hats. That's safety helmet, isn't it? Should, in case anything should drop on your head, you're not injuring yourself, isn't it? Be aware of your surroundings, especially when walking in high traffic areas or at heights. There was a time where I ran a cable and we were crossing the road. The cable was crossing a highway. Now, what do you think would be safety concerns crossing the cable along the road? I'm asking us now. You have to run a cable that is going to cross east-west road from this side to the other side. No, how do you prevent them now? I'm talking about safety measures that you can take as fiber optic engineers. You have a job to cross a cable from this part of the road to this part of the road, and it's a dual lane road. So what do you do? First of all, you need to stop the cars. And in stopping the cars, it's not only one person that will stop the car, isn't it? There needs to be a traffic warden to help you do that, because you just don't go to the road and stop people, isn't it? Traffic warden, wearing your PPE devices, reflectors, isn't it? As you're wearing those ones, they'll think that they are traffic wardens, isn't it? And by the time they're telling them to stop, isn't it? That time, your team can cross the cable, isn't it? And lift the cable up, right? What about when drilling underground cables? Because now you say, okay, you're passing east-west road now, but you're not going to pass the cable on top. You're going to pass the cable underground. What do you do at that point?
It shouldn't be at the daytime when the road is very busy.
Very busy, okay. That's a good one. Another one.
Or do you work at midnight? Do you work at midnight?
This job, fiber optic job, is preferred in the evening hours and in midnight when everywhere is less busy. Because as you work with fiber cables, you don't need much of sunlight. Especially when you are troubleshooting. You don't need sunlight because sun will not allow you to see those visual faults. So mostly in the evening hours or in an enclosed area. So evening hours is okay, it's a good one. Another one.
You should also stop the car.
Hmm?
To stop the car.
No, this one is in the night. Car should not be passing now. But even if car is passing, okay, somebody will stop the car. But remember, this is underground. We're not flying on top now, underground. So what do we do? We have past time of the day now. What's the next thing? In safety. All right, let me tell us. Now, since you're passing this cable underground, you don't know exactly what has been passed underground, isn't it? Before you came to work, some other persons must have done their own cable, isn't it? And passed what? Underground. So before you engage in such activities, you have to first of all cross-check the area, isn't it? And know the levels of each underground tunnel that is around that area, isn't it? So that when you're making your own pit to cross-bore your cable, you have to now decrease or increase your what? Your level where you are digging, so that you're not going to break another person's what? Pipe or cable, isn't it? So you need to make sure that you check your what? Your surrounding.
What's the depth for this fiber optic cable?
What's the depth?
Normal depth if you are laying out underground.
Maybe we could say like it actually depends on the area. You don't just have a standard depth. So there are some areas that are less busy. You may not go too deep. There are areas that are very busy. You have to what? Go deep. So that if should something happen in the future, they're expanding that area, they don't go and dig your cable. So it's more of, as you're inspecting, when you're surveying, you're going to know the exact length that you're going to use to be safe from damage. The next one is what? Inspection. We have to inspect the fiber cable that we are planning to run for any damage before and after installation. You have to inspect your cable. What are you looking for? You're looking out for kinks or cuts or even cross sections that can affect what? Performance. You'll not be running a new cable and somewhere in the cable, one side is bent like L, right? Already, as you see something like that, you just know that this cable is damaged at this point, isn't it? There's no need straightening the cable again, because for it to be bent that way, it must have broken a core inside it, isn't it? So at that point in time, you know that this cable is not good. So that you don't go and run something that you have to pull again and start again from the beginning. Imagine running a kilometer of cable and at the 500 meters, there's a damage. You start thinking of cut and join or removing the whole cable and start afresh again. It would be a bad thing. For instance, there was a time we were running a cable and the cable, it was carelessly flown along the road. So a car passed and mashed the cable. It was a soft cable. It was not really an armored cable. So as the car climbed on top of that cable, it damaged the cable and we didn't even know. It was when we finished terminating the cable that we are now running traces to confirm that's doing the inspection now to check if the work is done. That we found out that this cable has been damaged because you're running a trace and it's not coming out where it should come out, right? And that cable is there's no joint in between. So anything you're shooting here should come out at the other end. That's what we now found out. We have to go and trace the cable and ask that, hey, along this path, the cable looks somehow. This is it. You must inspect. Cross sections can affect the fiber optic performance. Pulling techniques and what we call what? Bend radius. What's pulling technique? What do you think is pulling technique in this case? Good. Pulling technique. What do you think is pulling technique? Anybody?
Pulling technique.
Yes. What do you think is pulling technique? Pulling technique. Remember, in underground cables, you don't just pass the cable inside the ground, right? You prepare a what? A duct, isn't it? We know what we mean by duct. You know what we mean by conduit? Huh? You know conduit? You know pipe?
Yes.
Now, you want to pass a cable inside the wall, inside the ground, that's underground, inside the ceiling, right? You don't just pass the cable like that. You have to put a part for the cable. That part for the cable will either be in the conduit if it's inside a room, isn't it? Yes. In the conduit, that pipe where the cable will be channeled along. Now, underground, we call it what? Duct. Underground what? Duct. The pipe that will guide the cable. Now, when you want to put a cable inside it, you're putting a cable inside it. We call that what? The pulling what? Technique. How do you get this cable underground through that duct you have created? So, proper pulling techniques and respecting what we call the bend radius are crucial for maintaining the integrity of the fiber optic what? Cable. Bend radius. I've said it severally while teaching. You don't bend fiber optic cables anyhow. They have a maximum bend radius that they can handle. Because once you go beyond that bend radius, you've introduced what? Cable losses. Sorry, signal what? Losses. Isn't it? Which will degrade the performance of that fiber optic cable. So, what are the pulling techniques? We have to use what we call strength what? Member. Always pull the cable by its strength member, usually around the end or the fiberglass rod, and not the optical what? Fibers themselves. This prevents stretching and damaging to the delicate core. So what this is saying now, you have a fiber optic cable now, right? And you want to pull it. You're not going to be dragging the core inside it, isn't it? You have to pull the cable by the strength member. What's the strength member? The strongest part of the what? Cable. Some cables have iron inside it. We've seen it, isn't it? Now you pull the cable holding that what? Iron, isn't it? That's the strength member of the cable. You're pulling the cable holding that iron. Next one is what? We use proper what? Tools. Like a swivel pulling eye to connect the pull rope to the cable. This prevents the cable from twisting during the pull. This is usually in underground cables. Now you're passing an underground cable inside a duct, right? You have to use the proper what? Pulling tool, which over here is called what? A swivel what? Pulling eye. This is something like this. Can you see it? Yes. Now this is the swivel pulling what? Eye. You wear the cable inside this pulling eye. When you wear the cable, it's going to engross the cable and lock the cable, so that you can now pull what? The eye. I seen it because the people that when you engage in cable pulls and passing of cables inside conduit, you get to know what we call fishing tape, something like that. You want to pass a cable inside the conduit now. We have what we call a fishing what? Tape. That fishing tape is a small iron tape, isn't it? The work of that iron tape is to help you tie the end of the cable you want to pass inside it, isn't it? Because a cable that I want to pass inside the conduit may not be easy going in to the conduit, right? But the fishing tape, that's the work of the fishing tape. So it's going to be easy going inside any conduit. Are we following? So you can tie the fishing tape now to this end of your swivel, isn't it? And pull the fiber optic cable inside. Can we see that? So you have to use proper tools. Then the next one is we have to limit the pulling what? Tension. For example, in big fiber cable runs that you'll be using bigger machines to pull cables, you have to limit the pulling tension. Because those ones now, you're not going to be pulling them with your hand. You'll be using machines to pull cable inside the duct. Are we following? Now, as you're pulling them inside the duct, you have to make sure that this cable I'm pulling, I'm not going to pull the cable more than what the cable can withstand, isn't it? Because if you pull the cable with a force that the cable cannot withstand, you can damage the cable inside it. Because as you're pulling it, maybe something freezes the cable, and that tension is still pulling the cable. Before you know, you cut what? The cable inside the ground, and you don't even know where it happened, right? Which will damage the work. So you have to limit the maximum pulling tension, which is specified by the manufacturer. You have to stay below that limit. Use a tension monitor or a breakaway swivel to ensure the limit is not surpassed. The next one is the addition of what? Lubricants into the duct, right? You're pulling the cable. Let me show you something. You're pulling the cable. If you don't add lubricants into that tunnel, the cable will be difficult going in. Are you seeing it? This is a cable, fiber cable going in, right? Now, do you see the lubricant being added to the duct? So that as it's being pulled, the lubricant will help to free up the tension inside that tunnel. Are we understanding? So you have to use use a fiber optic specific pulling lubricant to reduce friction, especially in long or winding conduits. Talk about bend radius. Like I said, what's bend radius? I'll explain it again today. What's bend radius? Bend radius. The bend
you can apply
on a cable. It's very simple. Bend radius is the minimum radius a cable can be bent without what? Damaging it. The same thing you have just said. The minimum or the maximum that you can bend it. There are two types. We have dynamic bend radius and we have the static bend radius. Dynamic bend radius, this is the minimum radius during installation. During installation, that's the key word there. When the cable is under pulling tension, that would also be during installation, isn't it? When you are pulling the cable is installation. It is typically 20 times the cable's outer diameter. That's a mathematical calculation of how to get the bend radius. So let's say the radius of our cable, how big the cable is 1 meter. 1 meter is very big, right? That is the diameter of the cable. We're talking about a circle now. We're talking about a circle. I have something like this. This is a circle, isn't it? Yes. Now from this end to this end, that's the what? Diameter. Are you getting it? Mm-hmm. The D, diameter of the cable. Now let's imagine that our cable has a diameter of 1 meter, right? So the cable is as wide as 1 meter. Now that means the dynamic bend radius is going to be what? 20 times what? 1 meter. Which will be how many meters now? 20 meters. So we can't, during installation, we cannot bend that cable more than what? 20 meters. Do you understand? the bend radius of that cable shouldn't be more than what? 20 meters. Radius. What's radius? Radius is half what? Half of the what? The diameter. Right? So this is the radius. I seen it. So going from this top side, going from here, right, to this point, the radius of bend, that's what we are talking about, should not be what? More than 20 meters. Now this is during what? Installation. What about when you are finished installing? That one we call it what? The static bend what? Radius. So that's the minimum radius after what? Installation. I hope you're getting the difference. Dynamic bend radius during what? Installation, when you are pulling the cable. Then static bend radius after you are done pulling the cable. Is typically what? Around what? 10 times the cable's what? Diameter. Outer diameter. So note, bending the cable too tightly can cause what we call micro bends or macro bends. The important thing there is that whether it's micro bend or whether it's macro bend, it will lead to what? Loss of signal. And you know that the aim of our work is to make sure that we get the maximum signal possible, isn't it? So we have to make sure that we don't cause, we don't go above the bend radius of some cables. Let's go into practice. Last week, right? Was it last week? Our first class last week, we looked at the patch panel, isn't it? Right? We looked at the patch panel. Now we saw the way we wind cable inside the patch panel, right? Yes. Now, that curve, that circle you are making when bending the cable, is that not a bend radius? It is now. As we are winding the cable round, that's bend radius now, isn't it? We're bending the cable. So we have to make sure that we don't bend the cable too tightly, isn't it? Yes. Now, what's the formula there? Remember, that would be a static bend now, because we're not pulling the cable at that point in time. The cable is resting, right? So that's a static bend. So that static bend is what? 10 times the what? The cable's outer diameter. Are we getting that? Yes. Now, those cables now, for instance, a pigtail. What's a pigtail? What's a pigtail? We need to know these things in class before we go back to field to work. We need to know these things in class first. What's a pigtail?
It's a kind of connector. It's a connector.
It's a connector, a fiber optic what? Connector that helps you terminate a fiber optic what? Cable. It has a connector at this end and a fiber optic cable at this other end. That's why it's called a pigtail, right? Mm-hmm. So now, if you look at your typical pigtail, they're about how many? What's the outer diameter? Those small tiny pigtail. What do you think will be the outer diameter? About 2 millimeter, isn't it? About 2 millimeter. What about the fiber optic cable itself? What's the diameter of the fiber optic cable?
It's less than 1 mm.
We have an exact thing. It was in our class. Now we've said this severally. The single mode fiber cable is as big as how many meters? 8 to 10 nanometers. Why the multi-mode cable is about how many meters wide? 50 to what? It's not 75. It's 60 something. 50 to what? 65. Okay. 50 to 65 nanometers, right? So that means the bend radius when you're bending a single mode cable that is around 8 to 10, right? So let's just take the biggest, 10 nanometers wide. Will be how many? 10 times how many? 10 times 10 nanometers, isn't it? The static bend radius, right? That will give us how many? 100 what? Nanometers. So it's telling us that the bend radius should not be tighter than what? 100 what? Nanometers.
Well, is it tight now? Because that place you coil the cable like this. So how do we now know if it is
How do you measure
the
it?
tightness? How do we now know the tightness?
How do you measure it? The radius, we said the radius is equal to half of the diameter, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, if you double the radius, you get a diameter, isn't it? Mathematically, if you double the radius, you get a what? Diameter. So it means that that cable, that circle you are trying to make should be 2 times wider than it. So we have gotten that the bend radius now is 100 nanometers, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, as you're bending the cable, 100 plus 100, that will give you how many? 200, isn't it? So that circle we are trying to form, right, should be bigger than what? 200 nanometers. All right. See a picture of what we have been explaining here. Just keep it. Are you seeing the bend radius? So the radius is what? 20. The diameter will be what? 20 times 2, 40. Under this, when it's under what? Tension. When you're pulling.
I
Then
think we had this issue last time.
when it's at rest.
During our installation.
That's the last pole.
Yes. I think that radius there was. It was not up to like this now. Was it this sharp? During our installation, we tied a cable to one and tensioned it to the other one, so it was.
Very, that you've gone beyond the bend radius.
Yeah.
Now you're seeing it. Now, the funny thing is, the cables on the pole, you have to use what? The under tension bend radius. Because always, at all points, those cables will always be under what? Tension, isn't it? Gravity is drawing them down, and the tightness on the pole is also what? Tensioning them. So that one, the bend radius, you always be using under what? Tension. But something that is not under tension, the bend radius you'll be using what? Is what? Installed after installation, which is times 10. Under tension, times how many? 20 of the outer diameter. So if you say that, for example, you are pulling the cable and that cable is as wide as, let's say, I don't have a ruler here, but let me say like 2 centimeters, right? 2 centimeters. Okay, do I have anything that we can measure? Do you know how many? There's no ruler here though. But let's assume the cable is 5 cm, right? 5 centimeters. Now, if it's a cable that we are running on the pole, that means the bend radius is going to be 5 times how many? 5 times how many? 5 times 20 now, which will give us how many? 100 cm. Now, if you look at what's happening here, the bend radius is from here, right? When the cable has completed the bend, to here, when the cable was starting with the bend, isn't it? Now, that diameter that you form, because that bend will form a circle. Sorry, good afternoon. That bend you are implying there will form a what? A circle, isn't it? Now, by the time you form that circle out of it, that circle's diameter should be greater than what? The bend radius. Are we understanding it? So that once you go below this, you will start causing signal what? Losses, which can be due to micro bends or macro bends. I understand. I hope we are following up with the class. Now, this is an example of what you can cause using this macro bend. I seen the way this cable was bent, almost 90 degrees. So that means this cable is not following the bend radius, right? Now, because of that, do you see what's happening to the light?
Yes.
This is the outer diameter. If you measure here to here, isn't it? That's the outer diameter. If you measure from this point to this point, the outer diameter of the cable. So it means that if this outer diameter is 5 cm, the bend radius should be 5 times what? 20, which will be what? 100. Now, for the fact that this cable was bent below that, now you now have what? Macro what? Bend. Because as the light is coming, because of that sharp turn, right? Some of them are trying to reflect, but the angle is not working for them again. So they are being lost at that point. Now see how bright the light was coming from this side. By the time it was leaving the bend, this is how small it is. Just this now has introduced what? Signal loss. We understand, right? Then this is another picture. This one now is called micro what? Bend. Can someone explain this to me? From what you're saying, what do you think it is?
It's underground. It's underground.
It may be underground.
It's a kind of
Hmm?
It's a kind of pool. Because it's not a bend. It's not the signal loss is not as a result of bend, but it's not bend. Maybe as a result of the pool.
From there, I can say that it was.
The word I'm looking for is something is pressing the cable.
Yes, it was damaged, but not by then.
That's the word I'm looking for. There's a tension on top of what? The cable, forcing the cables to be smaller. See the force. Are you seeing the force point? Right? This is a force pressing the cable down. Now, because it's pressing the cable down, it's narrowing the size of the core, isn't it? Which is pressing and losing the signals at that point. So anywhere there is an external force pressing the cable down, you see what? The bends there, isn't it? Now this kind of bend, now we call it what? Micro bend. Bend from bending of the cable. That is if you don't follow the radial, that is called macro. This is some table that should help us emphasize on the numbers. Measurement of micro bend losses between a G657.82 and G652.D fiber cable. Like we said, each cable has a name, isn't it? So that's the manufacturer name. So you can go back home and browse that name. You'll find the kind of cable, isn't it? But it's a single mode cable. So
What name?
this is the name now, the name of the cable, the standards of the cable. So on this now we're talking about micro what? Bend, isn't it?
Yeah.
Something is pressing the cable. Now, at 1550 nanometers of wavelength, the G657.82 will be having a loss of how many? 0.1 dB. Right? While the G652.D would be having a loss of what? 0.3 up to what? 1 dB. And do you see the difference? Do you see the difference?
Yeah.
Which one has more loss?
The second one.
The second one, right? Same thing with the wavelength of 1625, 0.1, while the G652.D will be having a loss of what? 0.45 to 2 dB. And it's even worse for the last wavelength of 1650 nanometers, right? Then we'll talk about the loss from macro bending between those two cables also. So this side of the table talks about the radius. That's the radius of the what? The bend, which if you double it, you get the what? The diameter, isn't it? So for the 652.d, if the radius is at 15 millimeters, if the radius is at 15 millimeters, what will be the diameter? 30 millimeter. Now, if you bend that cable 30, and your radius, sorry, your diameter of that bend is less than 30 millimeters. Because of that, you have induced a loss of what? 1.5 decibel per loop. When we talk about loop, if you remember from the patch panel, before you manage the cable, you loop it a lot of times, isn't it? You don't just, it's not one loop. You loop the cable a lot of times till you've managed all the excesses of that cable, isn't it? Now, because of how tight that loop is, 15 millimeters, which the diameter of the loop is 30, right? Each loop that you loop that cable, you have added what? 1.5 decibels of loss. So if you loop the cable 5 times, it means you have added what? 5 times 1.5 decibels of loss, just because of what? That management you're trying to do there. Are we understanding? That's why when you're running cables, you have to make sure, look at the size of the cable. As you practice often, you find out that there are some cables that you can bend a little tighter. There are the ones that you can't bend too much, isn't it? For instance, the fiber optic core is smaller than the pigtail, isn't it? So it means that one can accommodate more bend, isn't it? The pigtail that is bigger than the fiber optic core, you can't bend it the same way you're going to bend the core itself, isn't it? So this is helping us to understand. Still on that 652D, on a wavelength of 1625 nanometers, each loop of that bend is causing what? Less than or equal to 5 dB of loss. Right? So if you bend it 2 times, you have added 10 dB of loss. That cable says 2 times you have dropped the signal, because the signal will no longer be useful again. Just because of that bend.
So we're not supposed to roll it?
Hmm?
We're not supposed to roll it?
No, you are to roll it. Look at it. At 15 millimeter, which the diameter will be what? 30, isn't it? Each of that bend would cause what? 5 dB. Each of the loop of that bend will cause what? 5 dB. So if you loop it 2 times before you go out from the bend, right? You've added what? 10 decibels of loss at that point. Now just look at the difference now. If you increase the radius to 20 millimeter, which the diameter will now become 40 millimeter, right? That loss that would have been at 5 dB now is now at what? 0.7. You see the difference? Then, if the radius is at 30 millimeter, you see that it's unmeasurable because there is no significant loss again. That's what the 652D on this wavelength. And if it's at 1625 nanometers, you can still measure it, but it's around 0.001, right? And when we splice cable, you know that when we splice cable, the loss that we add from splicing is around what? 0.01. Are you seeing it? So that means if you loop it 10 times, it's as if you have spliced another cable joint there, because that's the total loss that you have added there. At how many meters of radius? 30 meters. 30 millimeters. So that means the diameter of that one is 60 mm. So based on this, that means to even be safe, you have to kind of what? Go further. You have to increase your radius a little. So we're saying something like 40 millimeter for the radius, so that the diameter will be how many? 80. It would have been good so that when we have a ruler, we have a ruler, we are measuring these things, so that you know, you actually see what we're talking about. Because as I'm saying millimeter, some of us don't even understand. Okay, then we have the G657.8 A2 cable, if you look at that one, at 15 millimeters of radius, the signal loss for 1550 is 0.003, right? And for this higher wavelength of 1625 is 0.01 per loop. And that's 0.01 is the one for what? Splicing, isn't it? So at that point, each loop that you're looping that cable is like you're splicing 1, 2, 3, 4, and onwards. But if you increase your radius from that 15 to 20 mm, the loss on 1550 is negligible. It's unmeasurable. It's no longer same. No, it's negligible. Like it's like 0.0000001. So you can't. No need for measuring that kind of loss. But if it's at 1625 nanometers of wavelength, it's at 0.001 dB, right? Then when you go up to 30 millimeters, you can't measure them, or we can't write them down here, right? So based on this, I want to ask us a question. Which of these cables is best?
It has, depending on what it's being used for.
Which of the cable is best?
For example, now the G657.82 is best used for where bends are required.
The G657A2 is the best.
Obviously, it's the best for all of them. It can manage macro bend and it can also manage what? Micro bend. Because in micro bend, whatever the wavelength is still 0.1 dB. And in macro bend, you're talking about how many? Less than 0.03 or 0.01. I think this one is the highest when the radius is at 15 mm. So that's the best cable.
What do you call it? Say macro.
Macro and micro. Let me ask now, which one is macro? Which bend is a macro bend?
The one, can I speak? The one that requires bending it physically at points.
The bend around something,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
You call that what? Macro bend. Then
Micro is
when something is pressing it down, force pressing it down is what? Micro bend. All right. Ducting and the use of conduit. Using ducting and conduit protects the fiber optic cables from what? Physical what? Damage, and also from environmental what? Factors. For instance, when we looked at that picture, right? If there was water inside that tunnel, do you think that cable will be protected from the water?
Yes.
Yes. Right? Because for that water to touch the cable, you have to first of all pass through the external conduit or the duct, isn't it? Before it touches the cable. So those are the environmental factors we're talking about. The conduit size matters. The conduit should be large enough. I think by intuition we should know that if you want to put something inside another thing, the one that you want to put should be smaller than where it's entering, isn't it? That's what this is talking about. The conduit, that's where the cable is going to enter, should be what? Large enough to accommodate the cable that you want to put inside it. And it should also allow for future expansion. What if you want to double it? What if you want to triple the cable inside there? Right? You should look out for all those features. A general rule of thumb is to use a conduit with a cross-sectional area that is at least 4 times the cable's cross-sectional area. Meaning, I have a pipe, I have a conduit pipe, and I want to run a fiber optic cable inside it. Right? Now, the size of the conduit pipe I'll buy would be what? It's just simple. It can accommodate 4 of that fiber optic cable inside it. at a time. Do you understand? So that at any point in time, after we have run that cable, they want to expand, add the second one, they can add it, isn't it? They want to even add the third one, they can add it. They want to add the fourth one, they can also what? Add it. Inner ducts. For these inner ducts are used for larger what? Conduit. For instance, in big roadside project, let's imagine East-West Road, though our country, I'm tired of Nigeria though, we don't do things accordingly. As this road now that comes from Choba Junction, right, Ikwere Road, to NTA, right, all the way down to Roma Hollow, all the way down to Roma Hollow, right? That's one string of road, isn't it? Now, along this road path, there is a gutter, isn't it? There's a big gutter along that road. Now, the NCC, that's the people in charge of networking the whole state, should have looked at having a duct inside that gutter, isn't it? Because that's the easiest place to pass a conduit for fiber or networking along the road, isn't it? Now, when they are doing that kind of project now, you're not going to put small conduit, isn't it? You'll be using what? Very big conduit. They are very, very big. You can even creep inside those kind of conduit. I understand it. Now, in that kind of conduit now, and you want to run a new cable or a fiber cable inside it, you're not just going to put the cable inside there. You have to put what? An inner what? Duct or an inner conduit. So inside the big conduit, you have a smaller what? Conduit before you now put your what? Cable inside it. I hope you understand that. So we can use inner ducts to separate multiple cables and also prevent tangling. Now, an example, MTN is trying to use that duct system that we have talked about, right? Now they can go and buy a dot color of yellow color, isn't it? Because officially, we know MTN is yellow color, isn't it? Now Glo is trying to use that same big conduit, right? In their own duct, they'll buy a green color duct, isn't it? Now you see how we have separated the individual cables that will be passed along that conduit. So you see the function of the inner duct. Next one is we avoid what? Obstacles. We ensure that the conduit path is clear of sharp corners. That sharp corners that we're talking about should not even go beyond our bend radius, isn't it? So that it not affect whatever is passing inside it. So the key word there is use a sweeping 90-degree bend instead of what? A sharp corner. The sweeping, where you take from here to here, right? The sweeping now is going along in a circle. It's not just going and joining. Are we following? So that we get that bend radius that we need that is safe for the cable. You use a sweeping 90-degree bend. Also, we have to what? Ensure the use of what? Lubricants, isn't it? So that it will be easier to pass the cable and reduce friction. Then we have to seal the beginning and the end of the what? The duct when you're done passing your cable, so that cockroach and rat will not enter inside. Are you following? Because it is to prevent water and dust and other contaminants. Alright? We have another one. When laying cable, especially long cables, use a what? A figure 8 what? Pattern. Are you seeing it? Look at that picture very well. Does it look like 8? Now, why are you doing this? You are doing this to prevent what? Twisting. Are you following? You're doing this to prevent twisting. For example, this looks like the swivel eye, isn't it? Right? So that means they are pulling this cable towards this area, right? Now, as they pull this cable from here and it's going, if you look at the pattern, it will just go and come out, isn't it? It's not going to tangle. till it gets to this other end. You pull it out completely in that 8 pattern. It will not tangle. That's why we do that. I've already shown us this one, right? We have a table that we could use as a guide. Very small. Let me zoom in. All right, so we have the strand count. Our table is made up of what we call the strand count. This incising your conduit. So if your cable has 2 strands and you're going to use them for indoor, that means you should use at least 1 inch of what? Conduit pipe. I hope we understand what that means. You don't understand? I should come again. Strand there, standing for the fiber optic core inside it. So instead of saying 2 core cable, I'm saying 2 strand what? Cable. I hope we are following that, right? Now we know how small 1 core cable is, isn't it? You know how big a 48 core cable is, right? Look at that now and say, if the cable is as small as 2 core or 2 strand, right? The indoor, if you're passing that cable inside the house, that is from something like that switch now to the ceiling, then to the server room where it's going to. That means the size of the conduit should be at least what? 1 inch. Are you following? If you are using them either indoor and maybe somewhere outside also, the 1 inch is okay. But if you're using them outdoor, which you're going to fill it with what? Gel. You're seeing the cables with gel already now. What's the work of the gel? To make sure that there's no friction, isn't it? If you're using gel inside it to fill it up, use a 1.5 inch what? Conduit. Then, what if it's outdoor, but it's an armored assembly? Right? That one use what? At least a 3 inch what? Conduit. Then, if you're trying to be as small as possible, use what? At least 1.25 inch. It's just a table that it's just showing us some kind of numbers that we could use, up to 144 strand, 144 core cable. So 144 core cable inside the building, use how many? 2.5 inch conduit, and so on. When you get the slide, you can look at it. Patch panel preparation and what? Tray management. Let's look at this. What do you see? Now, everything we've talked about in class here, I think you've seen them. The helmets, the PPE, isn't it? And how clean the environment is, right? And the patch panels and the cables. Now, this is the tray, this green stuff here, right? When you're done, this is an outdoor enclosure. Sorry, an outdoor patch panel mount. So we have the patch panels as trays, right? Sitting inside this table, isn't it? When you want to work on one of them, you bring them out, work on it. When you're done, you push it back inside, isn't it? Then in the front of that, you have where you can plug your patch cables too. Now, how do we prepare something that looks like that? Patch panel preparation. It is essential for a clean, an organized and reliable network. first of all, in preparation, we have to do some splicing, isn't it? We have to splice the fiber optic cable to the pigtails, isn't it? On the patch panel, which we have to use what? Fusion splicing, so that we ensure low signal loss. Then, when we are done splicing, we have to what? Label. You label what? Every port. Because assume you're going to do this for 5 sites, for instance, right? Each of these 3 is taking about 12 ports. 12 ports. That's 1 buffer, right? One buffer. Now, for those 12 sites that you're going to do it for, if they ask you tomorrow to tell us what's going inside here, will you know? From your head? No. You have to what? Document it. And helping to document it is what? Labeling, isn't it? You label, okay, on buffer 4, port 2 is going to this place, isn't it? You label it. You label every port on the patch panel clearly and what? Consistently. This is crucial for what? Troubleshooting and future maintenance. Then you have to also secure the connections. Ensure that all the connectors are properly what? Seated and secured to prevent accidental disconnection. For example, the square connector, if you are trying to plug it in, you must push it till you hear that click, isn't it? The lucent connector, same thing. You must push it in till you hear that lock, isn't it? If you don't push it to that extent, 1, you have induced some form of signal loss at that point, right? And also, it may also pull out easily. So that's why we have to ensure all this. 3, and slack management. You have to leave enough slack. That is what? Extra cable, isn't it? At each end for future reterminations or repairs. Now, we have already talked about this before when we are talking about the cable distance, isn't it? We talk about keeping slack. Let's say, for instance, you are terminating a cable at a pole. You want to put an enclosure at that pole. Now, you don't just measure directly from the pole to the ground and cut, isn't it? You have to add some form of excess, which you call slack, which you use for termination purpose. Now, you're not just looking at the one you use for the termination of today's work. So looking at, okay, what if something happened and I have to re-terminate this cable all over again? It's still the slack that you have kept that you're going to use to do that work, isn't it? So you have to keep enough slack. The slack should be what? Neatly what? Coiled and stored in a designated slack management tray or anyhow you want to manage it. But the key word there is what? Neatly what? Coiled. You don't just coil it anyhow, right? If you are passing and you look at the pole and you saw what an engineer did, you just coiled the cable anyhow and kept it there. Won't you laugh at the person? You will, isn't it? So put yourself in that shoes. So you must manage and coil the cable neatly. The cable tray management, use cable ties. Cable ties, or we call them tie wrap, right? Or zip ties, right? Or Velcro straps to bundle cables neatly. So do not over tighten them as you are zip tying a cable. Don't go and tighten it too much. Remember, you are pressing a fiber optic cable. If you tighten it too much, it will cause micro bend, isn't it? Do not over tighten them, as this can crush the fiber cables and cause signal loss. I hope you are following.
What kind of time, like, if it has something to be, like, you know that you go for too tight or something?
Yes, now, as you are managing your cable now, you need to, maybe you have like 5 cables, right? You need to tie them together, isn't it? For smooth and neat management. Now, as you are tying those cables together, don't over tighten it. That's what he's saying. Because if you over tighten it now, you're causing that friction that we talked about in micro bend, isn't it? A force pressing the cables from outside. cable routing. You have to route the cables away from power cables. You have to route the cables away from power cables to avoid electromagnetic interference. Though we say the fiber optic cable is susceptible to the EMIs, but still you have to be safe. Keep them, separate them, separate fiber optic cables from power cables, separate fiber optic cables from Ethernet cables. Use separate pathways or separate trays for fiber and copper cables. Then from your label, you get your documentation. You have to create a detailed documentation of the entire installation, including cable lengths. For example, in our class on troubleshooting, did you see where cable length played its role? Do you remember? You were there now. When we are measuring the cable distance using the OTDR and looking out for loss or event points that should have caused the signal to drop, right? If there's no proper documentation on how that cable goes, what's the total distance, would you know if that cable, if that signal is dropping along the road or if it's getting to the destination? Do you understand? So it's by the documentations that the person that has carried out the job is telling you on the document that he has prepared. Port 1 is going to Choba Junction and has a total distance of how many kilometers? 10 kilometers. Now, if there's an issue or we are doing a maintenance and we run a trace on that port 1 and it's dropping at 6 kilometers, it tells us that this core is not getting to the destination, isn't it? Simple as that. Because we have a guide, which is the document that we are following. So as you're doing any job, you're also documenting. You're documenting the cable length, how the cable goes to that point, and a diagram of the patch panel if you can get that done. This is invaluable during future maintenance and troubleshooting. I think based on this, we'll head into some practical time. We've learned a lot on theory. Let's get our hands dirty. Are we ready? Are we ready?
Yeah.
All right.
I wanted to ask a question.
Question and answer.
People that mount solar panels, is this if I work with animals?
No.
They are different.
People that mount solar panel.
Panels and all these cameras.
That's a different job now, isn't it? But the funny thing is that one person can know how to do all, right? So you can learn how to install fiber optic cable, right? You can also learn how to install network cable, which are copper cables, right? Now, if there's a job for fiber cable, they call you. If there's a job for CCTV camera, which uses network cable, they also call you, isn't it? So they're actually different jobs, but one person can know how to do them all.
So let me ask. Exactly, you made mention of a manhole earlier.
Handhole. Handhole.
Yes.
Okay. What do you want to ask about the handle?
Like an explanation of it.
What is it?
Yes.
Is it just a small pit? Remember, underground cables pass underground, isn't it? Now, that pit is where you can walk on that cable, like a junction box. So inside the handhole, you have your cables there and your enclosure or anything you're doing at that handhole, right? Your slacks also for the underground cable, you are going to manage it inside the handle. Are we following? That's the work of the handle.
So if you are like, let me say, running this fiber optic core cable under the ground, and because I was asking for the depth first, And actually, how, if you are passing fiber optic cord through that kind of space now, you will have to dig more inside, or you can pass it through the outside.
That's why I said you have to do a site survey. Now, if there's an underground gutter, there will be no need digging again. True of us. There will be no need. There will be no need digging, because inside that gutter, you should be able to get your conduit, because the gutter is an open space already. So you should be able to hang your conduit along that path and go along.
Inside the gutter.
Inside the gutter. It's just that we don't do that kind of thing in our own environment. Our own environment is not always like that. But in very developed areas where they plan every area before it's being built, the civil engineers, as they are preparing that area, would account for the part of network, isn't it? Which the only place to put it is as they are doing the gutter. And as they are doing it, they'll put it there too. They also create what we call the junctions, where you work on those cables. Some development engineers can even run the cables, put their own fiber optic cables, bring it out to boxes. That's the outdoor enclosure point also, right? Then they'll tell you, okay, you want to give these people in this estate, go and plug your cable here. It will go to that house. Do you understand? Because they have planned that place very well. Which, in planning it, they still need the work of the fiber optic engineers to help them plan. Because this is our field, isn't it? We are the ones that decide what should happen.
And I see sometimes most of them working with Aboki, they measure, they start digging.
The Aboki is the one digging. Yeah, the fiber optic engineer will not going to be doing hard labor.
The Aboki people, they are very useful.
They are the ones doing the hard labor. But the brain work is the work of the fiber
And there are some tools
engineer.
they use water. They pump in water.
That's when they are cross-boring the cable along. Now you can't, for example, that was what I was asking us in the beginning of the class. I said, if you want to cross the cable along East-West Road, you do area or you do underground. In underground, you're not going to break the road to pass your cable. So since you not break the road to pass your cable, you first of all look out for what is passing along this place. Then you get your safe distance and cross-bore your own cable along that road so that your cable can cross. You have created a hole under the ground without breaking the ground. That's the cross-boring that they're doing. So,
And that gem that they were pouring there, it has to be very slippery, right? To pass the cable through.
yeah,
It has to be very slippery.
it's made for lubrication, so it has to have that lubrication point so that the cables, as you're passing them, there will be no friction, because that's the main aim. The main aim of pouring the gel is to avoid friction. Friction will make the cable hard to draw, to pull, isn't it? So by the presence of that gel, it will be easy, it will be slippery, something like that. All right.